Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I'm going live about now. My internet seemed to have some small issues before that. I hope they are resolved. I'm connected via Ethernet. Should help. My iPad is showing that I'm live. That's a very good sign. Guys, I'm back. I know I took like a 10-day hiatus, but I was visiting family and friends. I'm also quite busy on this weekend for the reasons that are in the title of this video, obviously. Yes, today is my 29th birthday. No, you don't have to celebrate me. Honestly, I'm just doing this because all my plans have been on the last weekend and are coming up on the next weekend. So right now I'm just between working out and shit like that. So I thought, why not do a birthday stream? I think I had a lot of fun either last year or the year before that. I see Riley joining the chat. We have Max leaving a generous €6 super chat saying, damn man, was starting to get worried with the long break. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, I really apologize, especially to all the long-term supporters like the MarkTech Pro Max tiers, whatever, whether it's here or on Patreon. I know my breaks aren't great, but they're about to get a lot better. I have my work schedule now pretty much figured out, my personal life and everything, so I should be up to 2 to 3 streams per week, sometimes more if there's more happening. And I will try to also cover more topics beyond Apple, just to have more to talk about and potentially attract a new kind of audience. Happy birthday and a great stream. Hope to join in 2 hours or so. Well, when did you leave that message, man? I hope I'm still on. Like, I think this will be about a 1.5 hour stream or so. But if you cannot watch it live, I am very happy for you to just watch it as a VOD afterwards. I know my schedule isn't great, so thank you for just tuning in. Saying you're still at work with a sad face. Yeah, I was actually very fortunate to get to work a little bit early today. Everyone was kind of like, that's like their birthday gift to me, and I'm very grateful. I had a long walk through the park on my way home. Beautiful weather, autumn weather today. So Riley asking 24-hour birthday stream. Bro, I'm not a Twitch streamer. I wouldn't even know what to do for 24 hours. I guess I could play games. Oh, by the way, guys, cheers. Riley saying, anyway, happy birthday. Wish you many iPhone Airs. Yeah, we're going to talk about iPhone Air. It seems like you might be winning that argument, Riley. We have Angelica, a member for 16 months, one of our longest term supporters, saying, liebe Grüße, alles gut zum neuen Lebensjahr. She's basically wishing me happy birthday in German. Thank you so much back to anyone and everyone. I've had so many people congratulating through SMS and calling, which I'm so not used to getting phone calls these days. It's absolutely crazy. I get like when it's not work, like I get like spooked. Oh my god, it's a phone number I don't recognize. I'm not even that much of an introvert, as you might guess from my ability to stream. But yeah, I was like, Jesus Christ, what are all these calls? Wish you all a fun Coke night tonight. My Coke is of a very, very nice persuasion today. Guys, we have a lot to talk about, and I would like to actually start, for one, with the fact that no, unfortunately, and I know this is something a lot of you might have hoped for, is we do not have new HomePod minis, new Apple TV 4Ks, no new AirTags. I was kind of like very bummed out when I was preparing this stream. I was like, oh my god, maybe I should just like delay it. But at that point, I would probably be waiting maybe until next year. Maybe Apple delayed all that stuff to like early next year. Who knows? Or they might do some crazy December launch. We have Froza joining the chat saying, happy birthday. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for finding the streams, for watching them, for interacting. As always, do the YouTube jazz before we get fully into today's topics. Liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. You see, you can leave super chats like Max did. You can become a channel member like Max and Angelica are here today. Shout out to all the MarkTech Pro Max members here or on Patreon. And of course, just watching these videos helps. And comment. You guys know I love interacting with a lively comment section, getting your opinions, your disagreements, when there are some, getting your suggestions, what else I should cover. This is going to be especially more important going forward as I try to expand a little bit beyond Apple. unlike Riley from Drew, sorry, why did I thought his name was Riley? Unlike Drew from Tailosive Tech, I'm not sick of anything about Apple. I just would like to attract even more people to the stream and find new topics to talk about. But yes, you can see on Apple Newsroom, we have some topics here, but unfortunately none of them are new hardware. There is actually, though, quite a lot that I have missed. I've missed like the most recent Mark Gurman report, which had like details about new satellite hardware and software features coming to iPhone. Obviously, I've missed the iPhone Pocket, or as I called it, the iPhone Sock in my title. This upcoming December month for Apple Arcade is the best Apple Arcade month, in my opinion, ever, or at least since the very, very early days. And I've posted actually thumbnails of those games, like their App Store pages on the Discord. So guys, as always, go to the Discord. That's probably the best way to interact with me. I'm also on Twitter and stuff like that, but just Discord. I'm laser focused on tech, laser focused on Apple. There are no political distraction. Riveting Tail Chap absolutely blowing the roof off with a super generous $9.99 USD. Haven't gotten actually, I think, a USD donation in quite a while, saying happy birthday, Mark. Listen, I'm glad I came across your Twitter, man. True, we got together over Twitter when I actually had my old account. No, not actually my old account, my old account. You were one of the OGs on my account that actually got hacked all the way back. The account that Tim Sweeney at some point subscribed to because he misunderstood some of my arguments. So yeah, Rich and Tailshare, we go all the way back. I know you don't always have time to watch me. Obviously, the time difference between the United States and Germany, different work schedules, my own terrible streaming schedule. So thank you, man. Such a generous donation. Saying, I learned a lot from you and continue to do so. Man, this warms my heart, my icy heart. You deserve your recognition in tech Twitter space, and more wishes to you. I hope my recognition grows beyond the tech Twitter sphere, because honestly, everything just regarding Twitter is just such a cesspool these days. Not to say that I'm not happy to like pick up people, audience members potentially on Twitter. It's just that, unfortunately, like there's just so much negativity. I will talk about the Apple Pocket. I might have a little bit of a hot take on it. And the hot take isn't that I'm madly in love with it and it's the best Apple product ever. But I do want to distract a little bit from all the negativity that comes up all the time, especially when it comes to something that's so clearly fully optional, right? We're not looking at something that's a brand new business model for Apple. We're not looking at the return of the Apple sock, but at 5 times the price. No, I'm just like, I'll talk a lot today, probably, because there are no videos to react to or anything, unless you guys suggest something or whatever. But yeah, thank you, Max, for the super chat. Thank you, Rich and Tail Chap. Thank you guys in Euro. Thank you guys in USD. If you feel like adding any kind of other currency, I'll welcome it and try to do the conversion in my head about how generous you are. But thank you so much. Yeah. So, and actually, the first topic of the day is actually something that came up just as I started streaming, or just as I was booting up OBS right before the stream. Now, I know most of you guys are not too interested in like PC stuff. This is, though, very interesting because it seems like Valve is back to doing Steam machines. This is what do they call it actually? Yeah, they call it Steam machines still. So your games on the big screen, powerful PC gaming. Like I already see just from the, and I just wanted to comment on this because I know that like the Apple community has such different priorities. you can see them right when looking at the product, right? Now, the design is simple, but it's a cheaper product. That's pretty much par for the course for any kind of like console-like hardware. But even just from the first thing, right, you can see it uses like USB-A ports and micro SD right in the front. And I just found that so funny when I saw that. Now, they're also expanding into virtual reality, but all of that is coming next year. I will be covering reviews of that and things like that. So I don't want to focus too much on it. But basically, the idea is this is probably the closest thing that Valve has done to an actual console competitor. As you guys know, beyond all my Apple hardware, pretty much the only major other platform that I use is my PlayStation. Yes, obviously I do engage with some Valve stuff, or to be more precise, from Steam Store stuff on my Mac, but I don't consider that a full-on different platform. So I do like gaming, and I always advocate for better games to come to Apple's platforms. I always advocate for these games to be actually very cross-platform inside Apple's platform, to be on iOS, on iPadOS, on Mac, on Apple TV, and even now on Apple Vision Pro. In fact, I will have some incredibly positive things to say towards Apple and Apple Arcade later on. In fact, I think I can kind of combine these two topics. My brain is starting to work. Having some fun here. About how to schedule this stream properly, or how to divide it up. So basically, core features that define Steam Machine here. SteamOS, so this is a direct attack on Microsoft, and this is the reason why I'm covering this, because I've been so fed up with just how inefficient Windows is. Yes, this goes also back to my frustration with my work PC, but at least my work PC has nothing really installed. I believe it has like the Pro version of Windows 11, so it has like most other stuff disabled. It works fine, at least to me, but yes, when it comes to a platform where you just want a game or something like that, something that you might want to give to a kid or something like that, yes, having a dedicated OS that, yes, still allows you to do pro stuff or whatever is cool, but yeah, it's definitely better than Windows, which seems these days not optimized for anything. It has a small form factor, so you can put it under your TV. It's a roughly 6-inch cube, so we are actually going back to like the Power PC Cube days. Pretty cool. It actually reminds me a lot, obviously, of somewhere like a mix between a Mac Mini and a Mac Studio these days. So it's cool hardware. It's cool and quiet. They say even it's whisper quiet, which I assume refers to like if you're sitting a little bit further back from it. And it has I/O for days. And this is my first disappointment, and this to me suggests that this is relatively old hardware. So it has some standard hardware. It has 1 gigabit Ethernet. I don't think most people need that much more, especially for a gaming-only product. DisplayPort 1.4, that's already not the best, but with display stream compression, you can get a lot out of DisplayPort 1.4. But then HDMI 2.1, which means it doesn't support like native VRR on newer TVs. That VRR functionality is baked into HDMI 2.1. It doesn't support 4K 120, at least not without some crazy DSC. And it has 1 USB-C port and 4 USB-A ports, which I realize this is probably so you can just put in dongles for like mouses and keyboards. And yes, I am saying mouses because mice is the plural of the animal word, and mouse, like at least that's how I learned it. Then it has a semi-custom AMD desktop class CPU and GPU, so I assume this is an APU similar to the AI Max 395 or something like that. They're also saying it's 4K 60 FPS with FSR. I hope this supports FSR 4. Again, I just opened it, so I'm not sure if they have any tech specs specifically for this, right? They have either 512 or 2 terabytes of storage. and it's expandable via micro SD, which is obviously way slower than an SSD. So I'm not sure what they're getting at here, to be honest. It has Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3. These are not great hardware connectivity standards for 2026 device, but then Apple just launched the M5 MacBook Pro, unfortunately, with the same standards. And the power supply is built right in. There's an LED strip, whatever. It runs SteamOS and it's Steam Machine verified. Great for streaming, made for Steam controller. So that's a new piece of hardware that they just announced. It's also going to, of course, work with their new VR headset. But yeah, this is an expansion basically of the hardware family that they started to build with Steam Deck, or to be honest, that they started to build with the original vision of Steam machines. Now expanding. I do not want to belabor this point. I know this is not the focus of this community, but yes, you can see the new Steam controller, which obviously has like basically little trackpads for the kind of PC games that need that. And then they have the Steam Frame, which is their virtual reality headset, which unfortunately still mostly runs hardware that is very similar to the Quest 2 and Quest 3. It is in no way a competitor to what Apple Vision Pro is capable of doing, even with the M2 chipset, much less than the M5, but it's obviously going to be a lot cheaper. It's going to be nicely optimized for wireless output from your PC. That's what the dongle is for. And yes, it has technologies like foveated streaming, camera tracking. I'm not sure if it has eye tracking though. Like for one, the screens are very low resolution, right? Like relative to what we have on it. They're also LCD panels, so there are no competition to micro OLED. They're saying it's between 72 and 144 hertz, so at least that refresh rate is higher than what you get now on the Samsung Galaxy XR headset. But yeah, that's their solution. We'll have to see. Obviously, it's controller-based input. Makes sense. This is a gaming-optimized device. I mean, if you're buying like the PlayStation VR2 Sense controllers for your Apple Vision Pro, this will be $250 for you. So this will definitely be a lot cheaper than just an Apple Vision Pro by itself, much less than one with controllers and everything like that. So an interesting future ahead for Valve with that. Again, I do not love everything here, like making it battery based rather. Like I know they will probably still allow you to charge it, but yeah, I'm just not in love with some of the solutions here. This is obviously designed to be made relatively cheap, but probably still being more premium than the Quest headsets. So I just wanted to cover this, and just to combine that, actually, now that we're talking about gaming, let's actually talk about some Apple gaming, and let's talk about Apple Arcade gaming, to be more precise, because December is getting 5 games onto the Apple Arcade subscription service, which obviously you can subscribe to by yourself, or you can get it as part of Apple One, their multi-subscription plan, right? Their standout game, at least according to them, is SpongeBob Petty Pursuit 2, which is a sequel to a very popular side-scroller that they've had for a while on the platform. That makes sense. I also want to say this game is basically coming to all Apple platforms, and even more excitingly is they have Vision Pro games a lot on this in this rollout. So clearly there's some love being put behind it. One thing that absolutely excites me is Power Wash Simulator. Now, this is obviously being a smash hit on consoles and PC recently. And yeah, I'm really excited. This is also coming to basically all Apple platforms. Cult of the Lamp getting an arcade version. That's fantastic. there's also like updates to already existing titles like Sneaky Sasquatch. This is a phenomenal update, by the way. And of course, one of the most played games on iOS, on mobile, in all mobile history at this point. Subway Surfers is getting a plus edition. That means no ads, no microtransactions. If you have kids, like my nieces, for example, have access to my Apple Arcade account. And if you want your kids to not be subjected to ads and microtransactions, Apple Arcade is pretty much your only choice. Because even if you like buy the ad-free experience in certain games, right? Those games will still try to sell you microtransactions. And while you can argue, well, some games treat microtransactions more fair than others, like sometimes you just don't want to spend more money than you already are, right? Like I know that the amount that like my nephew spends on Roblox, for example, and my nieces too, for that matter, it's just outrageous in comparison to how little you get out of those. Like for those kinds of money sums, I used to get like real Nintendo DS games, real Game Boy games. I know real boomer energy here, but yeah, I really recommend Apple Arcade. I know it's not as cheap as it could be. Like what? It's $7 currently, which could be worse. So I do recommend mostly getting it as part of Apple One. But yeah, this is a great addition. It obviously features real big games like Power Wash Simulator and Cult of the Lamb here. And also one of my favorites, actually, which is Naruto Ultimate Ninja Storm. And interestingly, this game is not just like the iOS version, which is what sometimes happens. But yes, this also comes with like the Mac version, which is fantastic if you, for example, want to play games like that at higher than 30 FPS, because sometimes developers just do weird optimizations on mobile. They really optimize for like low power consumption and whatever. So yeah, you will get it on Mac. Hopefully it will allow you to scale such features. I'll let you know once December 4th rolls around and we get those games. I'm really happy now with my Apple One subscription, even though, for example, in Germany, I don't get the full benefits of it. Like I don't, for example, have Apple News Plus. But yeah, this is a great addition. Riveting Tailchap saying, holy crack, Subway Surfers. I haven't played that game since middle school. Yeah, like I'm not one of those people who is like, oh my God, I feel so old. This was like 10 years ago. Like, I don't know. My ability to fathom math kind of overrides like my shock. Oh my God, can you believe this was 10 years ago? And I'll be like an asshole and be like, no, I actually remember it being exactly 11 years ago and I was so and so old and whatever. It doesn't bother me or whatever, right? But sometimes, yeah, when you remember, oh my God, I played Subway Surfer like when it came out. That gives you a little bit of like, oh my God, I'm actually getting a little bit old. Next year I'm hitting the 30. So yeah, this goes a little bit crazy, Riveting Tailchap. I agree. But that's about it for gaming news today. I know some of you really care about gaming on Mac and on iOS, as do I. I do try to buy games, especially if they come out pretty early on iPhone and iPad and Mac. On those platforms, even over my PlayStation. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite lined up all the time. Usually by the time a game comes like onto the App Store or whatever, it's even inside like the PlayStation Plus subscription service. I don't even buy it on like my PlayStation. And some games, for example, like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, that one unfortunately does not have like a cross-buy integration. Like you have to buy it separately for iPhone and iPad and the Mac version, so you would kind of end up paying like $50 overall for a game that I think by itself should be like $15 and you're done, right? But yeah, I got it on PS Plus, so I kind of never looked back. But I would love to own it, and I would eagerly buy it, but it has to work on all platforms. This is why I really want to positively call out that basically all games that are coming next month onto Apple Arcade, except for Subway Surfer, which for understandable reason remains iPhone and iPad exclusive. Like all these other games, like some of them even work on Apple TV, and like Power Wash Simulator works on Apple Vision Pro. So pretty cool stuff here. Really great gets for Apple. I really do support their plus games, like games that are already established but get rid of microtransactions and things like that. But I really, of course, love getting like separate games that are actually like standalone titles, that are new experiences, that are experiences that have previously been exclusive to console and PC. So thank you, Apple. Actually a great month. Actually a great value. Keep that up, and please don't increase pricing for Apple Arcade before you start putting AAA games. Once you start putting games, I don't know, like Cyberpunk or the Resident Evil titles onto it, I could understand then raising the price maybe to $10 or something like that. But as long as you stay onto smaller games, AA games, console ports of smaller titles and things like that, clearly mobile games like that, $7 seems fair, maybe $8 at most. So I'm really happy with that. And that about ends our gaming topics for today, which let me clean up, because whenever I have so many tabs open, it's easy to get a little bit confused. And yes, my mouse just wants to jump to my iPad that's left of me. And let's talk about the controversial stuff that happened this week, which I'm not sure why this is so controversial, to be honest. Like, even my grandma, like, she was congratulating me today over the phone. She was like, and she used a word, because she's a Russian speaker, that I didn't know. And I was like, what? And it's like, yeah, it's like a handbag. And I'm like, oh, that. And she was asking me because she saw that on the news or in some kind of TikTok video or whatever. So basically, partnering with Issei Miyake, that's the designer who made Steve Jobs' turtlenecks, as far as I remember. Basically, Apple partnered up with him and created the iPhone Pocket, which features a singular 3D knitted construction designed to fit any iPhone. Now, the only good use that I've seen of basically this product that some people have mocked up is putting your Apple Vision Pro battery inside. I don't like that it fits every iPhone size, but then again, imagine having to buy multiple of those, especially once we get to the price. This is becoming available on November 14th, and no, unlike a standard Apple accessory, it's not a universally available accessory or anything. It will be available at select Apple Store locations and on apple.com in France, Greater China, Italy, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, the UK, and the United States. So, speaking as someone from Germany, these are all countries that are more fashion obsessed than Germany. Italy and France stand out obviously as European countries that could be interested in that. Greater China obviously has a lot of newly rich people. People that buy often pretty much everything. Japan is a little bit of a surprise here. Singapore, obviously, yeah, just a ton of money there. South Korea, I assume that whatever the demographics are in Japan are probably gonna some apply to South Korea. And then the UK and the United States, strongholds for Apple. Obviously, the United States, the richest country in the history of the world. Yeah, makes sense. But yes, if you are like me in like a relatively rich European country like Germany, clearly the culture in this place still doesn't vibe with this thing, right? The iPhone Pocket, which is interesting. They even specified that it's the iPhone Pocket, right? It's not the Apple Pocket. You cannot put anything else inside there. Don't put like your old iPod Touch in there or whatever. iPhone Pocket features a ripped open structure with the qualities of the original pleats by Issei Miyake, born from the idea of creating an additional pocket, because God forbid you buy pants with an extra pocket. Its understated design. Is this understated? I guess understated means it doesn't have like any extra bells and whistles, except for it being like a sock on like, and it's not a lanyard, right? But you get what I mean. This is funny to me because this is very clearly a fashion product. Issey Miyake could have, for all intents and purposes, just launched it by himself without Apple's help. But clearly, whatever cooperation, whatever relationship he might have had with Apple executives allowed him to put this out through Apple. I also won't be surprised if this is even like a time limited product in the end. Or Apple, like, I don't know, updates it like every 5 years or so. Something very fashiony, right? Not treating it as like a standard accessory, like an iPhone case or something like that. It fully encloses the iPhone. Yeah, I guess, but I mean, there are different ways to do so. Expanding to fit more of a user's everyday items. No, like that's what you get a handbag for, or whatever, and you don't need this to carry your iPhone around and have your pocket available for something else. Like, I guess this. Like, what I dislike this one specifically, even though it's the cheaper one. We're gonna get to the prices, but I dislike this one because this is still an effort to hold, right? Like, maybe you don't have to necessarily hold it in your hand. You can have it over your arm, but it forces your arm into an uncomfortable position. Now, this one looks a little bit more ridiculous, but at least this one is like an actual new pocket that doesn't require more thinking of you. This also feels much more theft proof to me. Well, this one seems ridiculously easy to just run up to that person, grab it off their arm, or just even try to put your hand down there. It's it's definitely a choice. iPhone Pocket can be worn in a variety of ways as a handheld, tied onto bags, which is hilarious. Don't put your iPhone into a bag, tie it to a bag, or worn directly on the body, like this. Which should be noted, this is not the most ridiculous thing ever. Like, when you think about runners, especially back in the day before Apple Watch, other smartwatches, other fitness accessories became more of a thing, like a lot of iPhone users would put their iPhone on like their shoulder, right? And then they would connect their 3.5 millimeter headphones to their ears, right? Because obviously this is a much more comfortable connection than this. So this kind of goes a little bit of a similar route. But again, this is not something you need in the era of Apple Watches, AirPods, and pockets have been available for a while anyway. Featuring a playful color palette, the short strap design is available in 8 colors and the long strap design in 3 colors. I actually did not know that. So these are all the colors for the short one: lemon, mandarin, purple, pink, peacock teal, sapphire blue, cinnamon brown, and black. Okay. Like, which, like, brown is such an interesting color because brown, like saddle brown especially, like, which this kind of goes a little bit in that direction. It's a little bit too bright for it. Like, this is a color that you would associate with leather, which would make at least some sense for the price. But no, this is just a knitted thing. And these are the colors for the long one: brown, black, and I assume sapphire. Out of all of this is probably the only ones, like the black and blue one here, that I would ever consider putting on. But like, nah, this ain't for me. But that being said, I don't hate this. Again, you can even see it's not labeled Apple here, though there might be some Apple labeling. This is from Issey Miyake, which makes totally sense. It's a very like Paris Fashion Week kind of like weird thing. Like, it's an extra accessory on top of all the things in the world. It creates an extra pocket in a world where our pockets are so busy. It's a piece of cloth, which kind of sounds like parody, right? I mean, it's crafted in Japan, which I guess is good, but you can argue how much that point of origin is worth it for you, given that, yes, the small iPhone Pocket costs $150, while the long one is available for $230. So guys, feel free to send me more super chats, and I still won't buy this. You can just send me more super chats. But yes, this is definitely a choice, but this is a designer choice, right? Nobody's forcing you to buy it. I know, like, MKBHD posted on Twitter saying this is like a litmus test, seeing if some people defend anything that Apple puts out. But to me, yes, it's obviously something that Apple put out, but I don't associate this with Apple, to be honest, almost at all, right? Like, this is clearly, and I said it now like 10 times, this is clearly a product from a fashion designer. It is in partnership with Apple, but the pricing very much is that of a fashion limited edition product. It is weird, designed to stand out. It's not even available in all markets. Even the color choices for the long version kind of suggest that they are not sure which ones will sell. I don't hate this. I actually think there is something that you could potentially get out of this. Maybe you make like a future version out of leather or something like this. I mean, Apple put out, like, by the way, even looking at Apple's own accessories, right? Apple offers the crossbody strap for half the price of the shorter one, right? So nobody forces you to buy, even with like an iPhone case, right? That one will be half the price of just the longer version. So just trying to make you understand, this is fully optional. This is almost like on a separate dimension in that regard. And obviously this is like slightly designed, like you can even see like from the colors, I would argue this was not like a huge thing that was like designed specifically for this new generation. I mean, yeah, you kind of have an orange color and the blue color, but like for the Pro models, but this is very much just the opinion of that fashion designer. So yeah, I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's definitely not for me. I definitely don't recommend it to most people. If you can easily afford it and you are interested, you're probably not necessarily my viewer. But hey, if you are, hi to you too. So I was just going to briefly cover it because I think it's interesting. And I think some people are just overreacting because this could have just launched on the website of this designer and people would have just ignored it. But hey, it definitely got him a lot of publicity, so good for him, I guess. Speaking of other Apple newsroom announcements that unfortunately are still not Apple HomePod minis, new Apple TV 4Ks, or new AirTags, Apple is launching digital ID in the United States. So pretty soon. I kind of almost thought this was delayed to 2026. You can read up on how to enable this. I'm not in the United States, so I cannot test it out. But if you are interested, if you are in the United States, go to Apple Newsroom, read up on that. I'm also sure that people will start posting like how-to videos, like knowing people like Zolotech post like videos on every single available iOS feature and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Again, this isn't for me, even though this one I would love to be for me. Apple, please bring this to Europe. I sincerely doubt we do have some kind of digital ID system here, but it's not less for identification and it's more for like online stuff. Which please don't become like the United Kingdom and use that to limit our access to the free internet. But yeah, pretty interesting. Obviously, this is yet another example of like a clearly US first feature, and given how this is rolling out, I wouldn't be surprised if this stays like US exclusive for years and years. And this very much depends on what other countries push for. Like, this is not, like, I assume if other countries make digital IDs a thing, which some have, Apple will do this in a similar way, but they're not doing this as like some universal API that just connects to your US database. So you do have to set it up at least some way. So look it up. Let me know if you're in the United States how it's working for you. Let me see if everyone is really like on board on using it. Like if you go like to a liquor store and they want to see your ID, or if you're stopped by the police, which granted at that point you should also have your driver's license. But yeah. So use this. Let me know what it's like. Definitely a little bit envious. Once again, a cool feature for the US market. But speaking of unfortunately not so cool things, which we got a lot of reports about the iPhone Air 2 recently, basically coming down to the fact that they are not selling too well, to the point that Apple either dramatically reduced their production or even fully stop their production, basically only now trying to sell out of whatever they have built. This would be extremely early for that to happen, especially for a model that Apple clearly seemed to have some faith in. However, we've also had contradictory rumors about iPhone Air 2 features and things like that. And then we even got more stuff saying that the iPhone Air 2 would be delayed. And some other rumors even saying it's canceled. I don't even remember at this point which website said what, but yeah, this is a little bit of a mess. Routing Tail Shop saying, in the USA, some websites do require you to authenticate your age, and they're wondering if the digital ID in your Apple Wallet will be able to authenticate. Yeah, please let me know if that works. I know, like, look, obviously, age verification online is a thing. I'm not. It should be, in my opinion, depending on the website and whatever you're trying to access. I do know that states like Texas have recently enacted like laws that severely limit like access to adult materials online and whatever. And the problem is, if you're doing this, you have to do this right. Like, you have to maintain user privacy, user security, and we've already seen some bad cases in like the United Kingdom of what can happen with your data and whatever. So yeah, I'm for it, but I'm for it done well. So let's see if whatever Apple is doing right now in the United States can be used as a potential building blocks for other countries to implement similar features, or at least to make online limitations, online age verifications a little bit easier to deal with. Now, iPhone Air 2, potentially delayed, potentially canceled. We don't know. Obviously, Apple has a lot up their sleeve. They're working, for example, on the iPhone 4, Jesus Christ, on the iPhone Fold, which basically would be like two iPhone Airs on top of each other. The main rumor was that the iPhone Air 2 could feature two cameras, and in fact, in my thumbnail, you will actually see a mock-up of the iPhone Air 2 featuring a double height plateau, so similar to the one on the iPhone Pro, while this one places it horizontally. Given how the plateau is built, this would be very, very surprising to me, because this is extra space that Apple uses, for one, for things like Face ID, right? For the motherboard, right? For some of the antenna stuff. So if you ask me, it makes way more sense. Plus, all of Apple's spatial video recording features are optimized for the cameras to be on top of each other. If you actually put it in landscape mode, right? No, not like this. Would they be on top of each other? No, they're on top of each other in portrait mode, and then they're next to each other in landscape mode. I don't know why I got confused. It's because I only have this image in front of me, right? obviously they're still on top of each other depending on your perspective, so this is a stupid argument I'm making. But yes, Apple's spatial video recording features basically wouldn't work with this camera setup. So to me, it makes way more sense for Apple to just double down on the plateau here. It would actually increase the internal space for things like the motherboard, for the antenna system. It could Would it potentially eat into some space for the battery if you like put the camera here? Yes, but it's an ultra wide camera. It's really small relatively, like a 1 over 2.56-inch sensor. So this is a setup that would make sense. This one doesn't to me. But basically, this is the state of the iPhone Air. Riley, you commented right in the beginning of the stream that basically like we have some tough times for iPhone Air fans. I know a lot of, especially in the tech space, have been really excited about the iPhone Air. So but I also assume that nobody will really cry too much, because this is also the time when we're expecting the iPhone Fold. And what it means for the overall lineup, we'll just have to see. Again, I do not want to cover all these individual rumors. It's easier to just summarize while looking at an image. Like, some rumors have suggested that because iPhone Air 2 is potentially delayed into 2027, that means that iPhone 18 would actually be delayed in the other direction, or to be more precise, it would be pulled forward to the fall of 2026, which, if you don't remember, the current state of rumors says that the iPhone 18 is rumored to come out late 2026, early 2027, while iPhone 18 Pro, iPhone 18 Pro Max, iPhone Fold, and before this, the iPhone Air 2 were supposed to come out late 2026. So there's a lot of potential reshuffling for the entire lineup situation that would be based on this. We are seeing some of the same trouble for Samsung, actually, which Samsung supposedly canceled the Galaxy S26 Edge. They kind of went back on their idea to make a Galaxy S26 Pro. Instead, they're just making a regular Galaxy S26, a Galaxy S26 Plus, and an Ultra. This, unfortunately, it seems like there are going to be very, very few changes, like the exact same camera sensors, like one wider aperture for the S26 Ultra, but basically everything else the same, and all exactly the same on the cheaper models. Like, no noteworthy battery size increases. The devices are also being made thinner, even though they are actually supposed to be coming with the 8 Elite Gen 5. At least the Ultra is. And the 8 Elite Gen 5 at its peak consumes more power than the 8 Elite. So I'm not sure how Samsung is gonna end up treating cooling on that device. But yeah, definitely thin products seem to have been an interesting experiment, but they're also creating some issues for these companies. That being said, though, at least on Apple's side, it seems like the iPhone 18 Pro is full steam ahead. There are already multiple rumors collecting around the 18 Pro. Obviously, less so for the regular 18, because, as I said before, that one was rumored to come out early 2027 rather than late 2026. Obviously, we know all the usual suspects for it. We know about the 2nm based A20 chip. I will cover in future streams, because I didn't prepare anything for it, like how the current TSMC schedule seems to look like who is adopting 2nm, who's adopting N2P, what we should expect from TSMC A16 and A14 going forward. It's pretty interesting because it's much more complicated than it was in the past, where Apple just had like basically full 8 to 12 months early access to a new node. That one seems to be switching up a little, at least in the near future. We're going to have to see what it means once we reach A16 and A14. But basically, yes, expect new processors. The main camera is supposedly getting a wider aperture and a variable aperture, so that's a cool feature. Gonna have to see how Apple directly integrates it. No big rumors about larger sensors yet for any of the cameras. Supposedly, there is a big sensor revolution happening 2027 for Apple, where sensors are gonna be much more capable of handling much more complicated dynamic range situations. But again, all of these rumors are still in their infancy. I will cover them. There are rumors also about new Sony sensors coming late 2026, potentially being used by like a lot of Chinese manufacturers early on. And then there are even rumors that Apple is now trying to manufacture their own sensors. I assume they would either go to Sony or to Samsung, or more likely, I assume they would just go to both. Maybe for the smaller sensors, they'll just go to Samsung, where they'll just get a price advantage. For the bigger sensors, maybe they'll have more trust in Sony, which has been manufacturing, obviously, their bigger sensors for a while pretty well. But obviously, a lot of it is iPhone 19 rumors. Maybe some of it is also iPhone 20 rumors. So let's actually get back to the iPhone 18 Pro. And obviously, we have all our usual suspects like the Weibo leakers, Instant Digital in this case. We've had a report not too long ago that said that the rear glass on the iPhone 18 Pro might go a little bit transparent, right? And I was instantly coming out and saying, nope, that's not happening. Not because I think that transparent designs are ugly or anything. Obviously, I like the old iMac and everything. But the problem is, if you actually looked at Apple's video of how the iPhone 17 Pro is made, you will find out that underneath this glass is mostly just more aluminum, right? So the body does not simply end here, it integrates with more aluminum down there, which is important for the cooling of the wireless charging and everything, right? Basically, this glass cutout is way bigger than it needs to be. Technically, it could just be this big or whatever. And some people have speculated, oh, this doesn't look like Apple, even though Apple has done two-tone designs like back on the iPhone 5 and 5S. And people were speculating, well, a transparent design, that could change it. Well, it seems like Apple is going in a much more predictable and, in my opinion, much more smart directions. And that is that for the next generation iPhone models, Apple has apparently updated the back glass replacement process, which I assume some of that is translation issues, given that the original is being posted in Chinese, to minimize the color difference between the glass. Now, it should be noted that the texture feel between the aluminum and the glass is already like extremely similar. So it really just comes down to the visual difference. Now, the one device where I'm mostly questioning this is the silver model, where obviously on the back, yes, this is a grayish white, but it's still designed to be white. On something like orange or blue, especially the blue, right? I would expect where this effect is already very close of just marrying that aluminum and that glass. Basically, Apple would minimize that color difference even further to make sure that it doesn't feel like a two-tone device. Whether they would change any of the geometry and how the glass is integrated, maybe making it go to the edge or something like that, that I'm not so sure of. Obviously, there is a big forward glass optimized iPhone redesign supposedly coming in 2027, so that could be it. But even then, I love the advantages that aluminum brings, like the difference in cooling between my iPhone 15 Pro and my iPhone 17 Pro Max, both obviously, has been so drastic. I love just how vibrant and deep the deep blue color is. I don't want to go back to materials that don't support such vibrant colors. I've always been for aluminum. Also, I'm glad that Apple is using a material that further allows them to potentially not increase prices, which is always good, especially in a challenging macroeconomic situation. But yes, I think it's very smart for them to try to minimize the color difference between the glass and the aluminum frame, resulting in a more unified appearance rather than going with a slightly transparent design. I assume they would be testing out both, and we'll have to see if Instant Digital ends up being correct, or Digital Chat Station, or maybe nothing actually changes over the iPhone 17 Pro series. We've also talked about like different colors being used, like the potential for a red iPhone to be finally made, but none of this has been finalized yet. Also, one major changes when it comes to processors is that this will be the first Pro iPhones to fully move away from Qualcomm modems. So expect more and more Apple chips inside. We obviously have already the A19 that will move up to the A20 series. We have the N1, Apple's first in-house Wi-Fi and Bluetooth modem. We already have the C1X on the iPhone Air and the C1 on the iPhone 16e. So now expect what I assume to be a C2X in the iPhone Pros. I also assume that X will mean millimeter wave support on the C2 generation, and then C2 will just be the non-millimeter wave, the slow version. But we'll have to see, obviously, once we get there. One other thing about the iPhone design that's supposedly changing, this is also coming from Instant Digital, is that the iPhone 18 Pro Max might become the heaviest iPhone ever at 243 grams, making it 10 grams heavier than the iPhone 17 Pro Max at 233, making it 3 grams heavier than the heaviest iPhone to date, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I think the 13 Pro Max was the exact same weight. So basically, this iPhone would get slightly thicker, but it would still hold the same 6.9-inch display. It's interesting because we've had rumors about the bezels further shrinking next year. Right now, we haven't heard of that in a while, unfortunately. But my assumption is if Apple trims down the bezels, maybe making them exactly 1 millimeter or even thinner than that, right, they will lose some internal space. And to me, I'll actually just show it to you, not in the old worn-out leather case, but product red. I just refuse to get rid of it. So my grandma got my mom's iPhone 13 Pro Max. My mom got my old 15 Pro Max. And that means my XS Max can now return to me. Love it. It feels very light, very comfortable. I've always loved this design. This is still my favorite camera design on any smartphone ever. I love how the materials feel. I love the space gray look about it. And obviously, yes, this is a lot lighter than my 13 Pro Max was, than my 15 Pro Max, and now my 17 Pro Max. 13 Pro Max was 238. I remember like when people were actually weighing it, like it was 240, but maybe it is. Yeah, obviously we've come a lot forward, or you can argue backward, depending on your perspective, if you like really thin and lightweight iPhones. A big part of it is honestly just the camera, because the thinner we make the devices, the more outrageous, the more out of place the thick camera bumps will be. I hope that Apple uses the extra thickness to give us a fully new, at least main camera system. It's really been a while. We've been using a 48 megapixel camera since the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, Apple did update the sensor a little bit to be a little bit faster, a little bit better at handling dynamic range. Obviously, they also have introduced new image signal processors and things like that. But I would love a larger sensors to go on top of the wider aperture and the variable aperture that we're supposed to be getting. And I assume that part of that solution is just going to make, well, it's going to take up more space. It's going to be potentially thicker. And once you potentially think about adding things like an even larger battery, that makes sense. Now, what it means for the base model, or to be on the smaller Pro model, I don't know. I hope they don't go too crazy about it, because I think that Apple is slowly starting to scare some people with the base Pro model. Like, I have a friend who really likes smaller phones, but he's also a rich bitch in a way. So he really always gets every year the latest iPhone. Like, he has an annual upgrade program with his carrier. He doesn't even use all the internal space, but he still always gets like 1 terabytes or whatever is the highest configuration. He doesn't get the Pro Max because that one is simply too large. And I wonder if, like, he probably will never switch away from Apple. But it will start to scare him when, like, this is obviously the weight of the Pro Max, but think about the weight of the regular Pro just scaling up similarly. Riveting Tail Chap laughing, I assume at me using the term rich bitch. Believe me, it applies to him, and he is very, very happy to live by that. Apple is also said to be adopting a new type of vapor chamber that uses stainless steel. I thought the new one already did. Obviously, vapor chambers are supposed to give out their heat, or the heat that they transport, in a very calculated way. So you kind of don't want them to just be copper and aluminum on the outside, so they instantly like radiate all that heat away uncontrollably. But I thought the new one was already stainless steel. Well, the iPhone 17 is still using iPhone 18 Pro translucent MagSafe area display sizes, 6.3 and 6.9 inches. On the iPhone 17 Pro, Apple says the vapor chamber is laser welded into the aluminum body, but it's not entirely clear if it uses any other types of metals. The post also said the iPhone 18 Pro models will be equipped with a stainless steel vapor chamber. Oh, okay, so I would be surprised if this one isn't stainless steel, because I mean, internally, sure, it uses things like copper for the heat dissipation, but it could be aluminum. I would love to. Does somebody know? Wait, I thought that titanium is the worst heat conductor to dissipate heat. Titanium is bad. Stainless steel is bad. The difference with vapor chambers is that the vapor chambers dissipate their heat internally, right? So what you want to have outside of the vapor chamber is not the same kind of like, oh, the heat just instantly evaporates into the chassis or whatever. Because that just defeats the purpose of having a vapor chamber that's actually elongated, that's where your heat will actually travel the entire surface of your vapor chamber and then dissipate the heat across the entire area, right? Maybe we should watch at some point like a YouTube explainer video, but yes, you don't want this, like, you don't want the actual exterior material of your vapor chamber. You can do that should be noted. If you have like an active cooling solution that's like blowing on top of it, that probably will be best to just make it aluminum or copper. But especially in a passive solution like this, you want that better heat dissipation material like copper inside, and then outside you would have something like stainless steel or titanium. Yeah, but this is interesting because I actually I don't know if I've missed it, like how exactly this vapor chamber is built. I could be wrong. Maybe the exact way Apple is doing it, maybe this is just made out of aluminum. I would be a little bit surprised by that. And maybe they're just switching to stainless steel. But yes, sometimes it's a little bit paradoxical what you want to use. And to be quite honest, in this regard, I'm not the biggest expert. I'm not a thermal engineer. I'm not a physicist or anything. So this is my basic knowledge that I get from like earlier in the past. I used to build PCs. I know, blasphemy. But even then, I wasn't working with vapor chambers, just with standard like copper cooling and an active fan. Did I use Noctua back in the day? I'm not sure. Was Noctua already a thing like 10 years ago? I'll have to look into it. A lot of my memories are kind of overwritten by like new content that since then that I watched on like Hardware Unboxed and Gamers Nexus and to a degree even like Linus Tech Tips. Yeah, but basically we've gone from some bad rumors to pretty interesting ones. Again, we can all argue, is it worth making the iPhone that much thicker and heavier? I think especially on the Pro Max, I'm really welcoming it. I would love an iPhone Ultra, to be honest. Like maybe Apple, like it doesn't even have to be a fully separate model, but maybe Apple makes some features exclusive to like the 1 TB configuration. God knows they charge enough for it to put more features into it. When you think about it, right, from the base model, from the smaller Pro to the Pro Max, you pay $100 more. Sometimes you get a better camera out of it, but at least you get larger display, bigger battery and everything, right? And then you pay $200 to go from 512 gigabytes to like 1 TB. Or even worse, you pay $200 to go from 256 to 512. And what do you really get? You get more storage, you get faster storage, at least like this generation, this is the case. The 256 is slower than the 512 and aboves. But you don't get anything more, right? At least thinking back about the iPhone 7 generation, you at least got like an exclusive color. This year, with the Pro Max, you can get the 2 TB configuration just on the biggest version. But I kind of would love to have like, oh, you want the 2 TB configuration? Here is an extra large telephoto sensor for you, right? Here is, oh, you might be in a market where we only, might not offer you eSIM models with larger batteries. Well, guess what? If you buy the 2 TB model or the 1 TB model, they're eSIM models just to appease the European Union or something like that. We'll still have physical SIM card models on the lower end configurations. Again, this is now completely speculative. I'm not saying any of this is happening, especially in the specific way that I'm talking about it. But yeah, I'm really interested. I might actually upgrade next year because there are some solid upgrades brewing up. But then again, I might not upgrade necessarily to the 18 Pro Max. I might upgrade to the iPhone Fold. But even there have been some rumors that it might be delayed. So we'll have to see how exactly all of this plays out. I promised you about a 1.5 hour stream. We're about an hour in already. I'm actually not sure how long this report is from Mark Gurman, the last one that I've missed. This one also goes into more new iPhone features. But I don't want to, like, you see, he writes so much, right? And says often so little, unfortunately. But basically, he talks about Apple expanding satellite connectivity, makes a connection here to Starlink because we don't know. Still, there are good reasons for Apple to stay the course with an in-house offering. So basically, people have speculated that Apple might just integrate Starlink technology onto iPhones, or they might work to expand with Global Star, which a lot of what Global Star is doing, which is Apple's current solution, is kind of these days like customized for Apple. This is why you don't really get like their phones necessarily, at least not easily. So let's see what Mark Gurman has to say here. We have Riley Jane saying, I'm upgrading as soon as I see good iPad mini gains. Yeah, this is also like, I think we talked actually about a potential OLED iPad mini last stream. And interestingly enough, since then, one of my best friends actually sent me a message that she is buying like a last gen iPad mini, so not even the current one. She's not waiting for the next one. She has got a really good deal on the base. What would it be, like a 5th generation iPad mini? Are we up now to 6th or 7th generation? Whatever is like next to the newest one. And she's absolutely loving it. Like for reading, she just loves the form factor. And yeah, I would love to have the same positive experience with an iPad mini. But after having ProMotion on iPhones for several years, ProMotion on iPads for several years, ProMotion on Macs for several years, plus having Mini LED on Mac and iPad, OLED on Mac, on iPhone, and even potentially going up to tandem OLED on iPad Pros. It's it's just a hard pitch to go with the current 60 hertz standard LED iPad mini. Okay, so a long-term shift towards satellites. Over time, satellites could become the dominant technology for mobile connections. Anybody who knows about physics, oh, you're saying the sound cuts off every 3 seconds? Wait, should that be the case? Is it? Wait, my microphone's showing that everything is fine. I mean, can and then unmute. Riley, let me know. Is my audio back to okay? Okay, my iPad also shows that it's okay. Riley, you sure it's not on your end? Or maybe I was hitting my microphone and that was doing something bad? Uh, oh yeah, it's... Oh, that was 20 seconds ago. Okay. I don't want to make you listen to old audio. Oh, Riley's saying it's my YouTube app on iPad. Okay. Maybe there was something weird about my connection because I just had like, oh, maybe that's YouTube on my iPad too, right? Because yeah, my OBS just shows my microphones are totally fine and everything. But yeah, guys, as always, let me know what the streaming quality is for you, video, audio, everything. I do want to give you the best experience possible. So thank you for letting me know. Sometimes it will be a bit distracting, but I'm absolutely fine with that, just so we can make sure it also doesn't happen, right? Like one time, for example, clearly it was my fault. It was my microphone's fault because it was constantly enabling and the mute button. Since then, I've updated my microphone, I've cleaned it, and I've actually disabled the mute button on the microphone because sometimes it didn't even take like my lips touching it. It just took me breathing onto it or spitting, I guess, which I apologize for that mental image. I just hooked to it on my effing microphone. So I hope it's all fine for you guys now. Let me know if there are any problems, and let's continue. So first, long-term shift towards satellites. Now, given that we are probably like driving towards a 10 billion population planet, it's going to be extremely complicated to make satellites the dominant technology for mobile connections. But okay, I honestly think I wonder, like, does Mark Gurman ask people? Yeah, the iPad app for the iPad YouTube app is super buggy, Riley. It's beyond terrible. It's to the point that I've recently contemplated using a web app because no shit, like the YouTube app on Mac, which is just a web app, like a Chromium package, and that's why it needs Chrome open, is way better than that, which was never the case. Like for every other thing here, like these are web app, right? Except for Prime Video, like Crunchyroll, Netflix, Disney Plus, they're all like web apps, and they're all way worse than the native apps on iPad, right? And which is why I hate that these developers don't allow me to just download their fucking iPad apps onto my Mac. And yeah, but this is a rant for another time, I guess. Control over the experience. By owning both the software and user interface, Apple ensures that satellite features meet its design and privacy standards, consistent with its broader philosophy of end-to-end control. True, if Apple just allows whatever carrier you have to dominate the satellite features, they're giving up control that they have been building up themselves, right? Like people sometimes ask, like, well, why doesn't Apple make like their own cellular and whatever? Well, fact is that those markets mostly are saturated, they're regulated, they're relatively low profit margin, they require constant investments, they're very direct competition where you sometimes have to, like, because of regulatory pressure, you even have to like share your network with others to make sure you're not even like a regional monopoly. None of that applies yet to the satellite connectivity market. So yeah, Apple is more interested in that. Global reach. Apple sells product in nearly every market worldwide, with US carriers like T-Mobile while US carriers like T-Mobile have moved quickly on satellite technology, many international providers have lagged behind. True. That's why certain features are basically completely separate from your cellular experience, and this is why Apple can even announce like new features, like even when we go back to Apple's newsroom, right? I don't know if they actually put it into Apple newsroom, but I know that this was a recent announcement, either today or yesterday. Okay, so it wasn't here. Apple Mexico satellite. Apple's emergency satellite feature available in Mexico starting today, right? So clearly it requires at least some like signing off from local governments or whatever, but it doesn't require the same kind of partnerships with local cellular providers, and that gives Apple a lot of freedom, right? And this also means that completely irrespective of what carrier you're using, currently emergency SOS via satellite is available from Apple in Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom. And yes, that also means that even going back to the iPhone 14, and sure, yeah, some devices will require you to have a newer version of the OS just so it can be verified by the country. International travelers who visit the country where the features are available can use the feature while visiting. That's available in Armenia, Belarus, China, which is obviously a huge market, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, or Russia, according to Apple. So if you get stranded in those countries, or potentially you're not allowed to maybe make a phone call in Belarus or Russia, if you say something wrong politically, maybe an emergency SOS call will help. But I'm not sure who it will connect you to. It could be just another Russian station. Technical dependencies. Apple's current satellite protocols were developed primarily for Globalstar's network and aren't fully compatible with other provider systems. That reliance could make switching networks difficult. But then again, you can argue that it makes it difficult, but you don't want to really. You probably don't even wanna like switch necessarily, because yes, could you get potentially like something from Starlink that's even better? Sure, but do you want to spontaneously be dependent on Musk and SpaceX and all that nonsense, and potentially risk like your contracts being like leaked because that guy is like, I'm talking about my funny water. His water is way, way funnier than mine. And yeah, so some people said SpaceX is looking into acquiring Globalstar. At this point, I would honestly prefer Apple acquire a majority stake in Globalstar, or at least like a plurality that allows them to veto this. Because this would be terrible for the entire global market. I would also prefer a service like this to be potentially owned by a European provider. God knows we need that in countries like Ukraine right now, like a little bit less dependence on SpaceX and Musk and whatever. But yeah, it's difficult. But despite all of those potential issues and all those long-term plans that are outside, I would argue, of some technological reach even right now, Apple is expanding their satellite features. They're working on a satellite framework for third-party apps. So right now we have like SOS and some other features baked into that. But Apple is building an API that would let developers add satellite connections to their own apps. Implementation will be up to the app makers, and not every feature or service will be compatible. I assume Apple will probably not, like, I mean, they could allow you to like stream music over it, but that really depends on how much bandwidth they have over Globalstar. So I assume it will be for like messaging, maps, and things like that. Speaking of maps, satellite powered maps, the company is eyeing bringing satellite connectivity to Apple Maps. Richer messaging capabilities. Apple is working on enhanced satellite messaging that supports photos, which this could be important in an emergency situation. Maybe your geolocation is not very clear, even with the satellite connectivity. So you might take a photo of your immediate surroundings, especially with like the ultra wide camera, and give your potential rescuers a much better ability to rescue you. Natural usage improvements. One of the biggest limitations of Apple's current system is the need for an unobstructed view of the sky. The company aims to let users stay connected while their iPhone is in a pocket. We just covered the Apple Pocket, car, or even indoors. I assume staying connected to that would consume a lot of battery. Depending on how exactly it's integrated, but maybe if you go on a hike, maybe it's just much smarter to stay connected to the satellite if you know like you have the battery. So if something bad happens, let's say you have some kind of emergency, some kind of accident there, you don't want to be immediately like, oh my God, I'm like caved in or whatever, like by giant stones. Let me get my iPhone and have this unobstructed view to the sky. Maybe it will just be, you can scream at Siri to activate that. Or maybe it will just send your last location after a while. So yeah, this form of natural usage does make sense to integrate, but it probably wouldn't make sense for regular day-to-day usage. Satellite over 5G on the hardware side, as earlier reported by The Information. Next year's iPhones are slated to support 5G NTN that allows cellular towers to tap satellites for increased coverage. We've seen some of that stuff coming to like T-Mobile, or at least being in the works. Again, I do not want to talk about SpaceX ultimately acquiring Globalstar. This just makes me very, very depressed because you guys know my politics and everything. I also think that I just don't want to give this new market entirely to like one company. That just feels weird and almost like we are just giving up on like actually building a competitive space. It's like if we had like the initial building of TV and the initial building of cellular and everything, and we just allowed one company to own it. That would be insane. That being said, we've talked about Siri using Google Gemini models on private cloud compute. I've already seen people saying, oh, Siri is being built on Gemini. And I've seen people even make videos that have like 500,000 views about like Apple is giving up on AI, which is so monumentally stupid. Like, first and foremost, Apple still has a ton of different LLMs that handle on-device features, even beyond Siri. Siri will have an on-device component that is most likely being based on Apple's own foundation models. It could be a small version of Gemini, but if you think that the 1.2 trillion parameter model that's going to be running on private cloud compute is anywhere near what is going to be running on your device, you're just a moron who doesn't know anything about Siri or AI or LLM or whatever. Internally, the company refers to the Google-built model as AFM version 10, short for 10th version of its Apple Foundations models. The reasoning is straightforward: avoid revealing the Google connection, prevent confusion among employees and customers, and emphasize that the underlying architecture still shares significant overlap with Apple's in-house system. This is also very important. I do not believe that this $1 billion deal would be a $1 billion deal if... Hey Siri, stop. Okay, you see, she needs some help, but obviously she does activate sometimes for no reason. I do not believe that this $1 billion deal would be just $1 billion, Don't forget, Google is paying Apple up to $20 billion per year, and it's increasing every year because of their search engine deal for Safari. So this is basically nothing. This could be 5 times higher, and Apple would still make tremendous profit just from Google alone. And again, this is a deal for like starting next year. It could double and quadruple per year, and it would still probably be dwarfed by the growth of that deal, that search engine deal with Google. uh, Okay, sorry, I just got myself a little bit fired up. I think that the reason why this is such a cheap deal, for one, is Google is just anxious to integrate their stuff into everything to make at least someone dependent on their tech, right? Maybe over time, this 1 billion could become 2 billion, 4 billion, 5 billion, right? But I also think that Apple is actually customizing this. I don't think they just got a new model and like this is launching like the new series launching in April or whatever, right? I do not think that Apple would be taking so long if they were just, you know what, we got the new model, it's running on private cloud compute, we forgot the new Siri on device, everything is fine, we're just going the same route as Google or Microsoft or Chat or OpenAI. No, I believe they're buying this similar to how they're buying the ARM license, right? Back in the day, before the Apple A6 chip, they were buying the ARM license, actually off-the-shelf ARM components. Later, they just kept buying the ARM license, which is a lot cheaper and allows you to customize it a lot more than an off-the-shelf CPU design. It takes a lot more work. It makes it much more expensive to have a big CPU design team. But if you have a great CPU design team like Apple has, that makes a lot of sense. And the same thing happened with GPUs. Apple kept buying GPU designs from PowerVR. And then later, when they started making their own GPUs, starting with the A11 processor, was it? Yeah, it was the A11, not the A10. And they started building their own neural engines and things like that. They just came to a patent sharing agreement. The same thing happening with Qualcomm and Broadcom, I assume. But like they were buying Qualcomm modems for iPhone, iPad, and everything. Now they're building their own ones, but to reduce the potential for like patent disputes and whatever, and because Qualcomm still has some patents that Apple definitely cannot live without, they have patent sharing agreements with Qualcomm. This is in the same vein like this. Right now, maybe Apple is paying Google $1 billion, maybe it will balloon up to 4 or 5 billion or something like that. And maybe down the road in 5 to 10 years, Apple becomes fully independent, makes their own several trillion parameter model, right? We don't know what the future holds. And this idea that Apple is just fully reliant on Google, that there is no underlying Apple work happening here, that one is just delusional. And I'm glad that Mark Gurman is at least providing here I mean, he does then go into like some tirades. Even so, adopting a Google developed model to overhaul Siri. Again, he's always bringing up Siri, but it's one part of Siri, right? It's not, he still isn't talking about the on-device stuff. Or what was needed to get the new experience ready to market. Credit where it's due. Apple is doing whatever it takes to deliver a product that meets user expectations. At least he gives some positive. And again, he does even bring up that they needed to use Qualcomm modems for the iPhone 12 lineup to bring 5G. But even before that, they needed Intel or Qualcomm to bring 4G to the iPhone, right? And even up until this day, like the vast majority of Apple hardware uses like Broadcom modems for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Sure, they're now moving away from it with N1, but yes, this takes time, and this is why I'm surprised why people are thinking that Apple can just be the same kind of player in AI from the get-go as like a company that's built entirely on AI, like OpenAI, right? And just as Apple was eventually able to begin transitioning to its own modem technology, it plans to someday move away from Google Gemini's models as well. Also, this gives Apple a lot of freedom. Knowing that they have Google Gemini, they can now go to ChatGPT and buy a model. They can now go to Anthropic. They can use different models for different parts of the pipeline and then customize them, right? I mean, we saw that even thinking back to like the A9 processor, right? Which was simultaneously built by both Samsung and TSMC, right? I believe by Samsung on 14 nanometer and by TSMC on 16 nanometer, even though the TSMC node was actually better. Yeah, so I'm very happy that he's acknowledging at least some of that. He also talks about more Apple hardware. And this is the last point for today. We've now been streaming for almost 1.5 hours. To anyone watching and still enjoying, thank you guys so much for joining. Please keep leaving comments. Let me know what you like, dislike, what you agree, what you disagree with. You can like this video, share it out, subscribe to the channel, become a channel member right here on YouTube, or support you over on Patreon. The link for the latter is in the description of this channel. Feel free to send a super chat or whatever way you want to interact with the community or me. You'll also find the link to the Discord if you want to meet up there. So, but for now, let's continue. Apple prepares low-cost Chromebook-killing laptop for next year. So we have obviously heard that Apple is potentially working on an A18 Pro-based MacBook. And obviously, Apple will make an M6 MacBook Pro next year. We know that M5 Pro, M5 Max, and yes, an M5 Ultra, that one would be tuned Mac Studio, but primarily we're talking about the MacBook Pro are coming early next year. So we are talking about a cheap MacBook coming, supposedly slightly smaller screen than the 13-inch MacBook Air. We don't know whether it would be powered by an A18 or an A19 series processor at that point. Very likely, though, it would be then significantly behind an M series chip that at that point would be close to 2 nanometer. So in terms of product differentiation, it makes sense. It could have less memory, like it could have 12 gigabytes of memory, similar to what the iPhone Pro and the iPad Pro has in their base configuration. But unfortunately, we do not have those details. One detail that is particularly interesting to me are the revamped M6 Pro and M6 Max MacBook Pro that are slated to arrive between late 2026 and early 2027. Particularly, they would feature a thinner chassis, a display with a touch support, and that display would be an OLED panel. To be more precise, it's been rumored to be a tandem OLED, a dual-layer OLED panel that is similar to what's on the iPad Pro. And this one is interesting because with the M5 Pro and M5 Max MacBook Pro launching early next year, if the OLED comes out late 2026, that could mean we get like crazy big updates in 1 year, right? I assume Apple could potentially shift the entire lineup towards early, like a spring announcement. So we would have an early 2026 announcement followed by an early 2027 announcement for those MacBook Pros. However, it should be noted that Apple has launched like devices in February only to then update them in November, even inside the Apple Silicon roadmap, right? Between the M2 and M3 generation MacBook Pros, they've already done this. No, or was it with the M3 and the M4? No, it was with the M2 and the M3, I think. Or to be more precise, M2 Pro, M2 Max, M3 Pro, M3 Max. And so clearly there is some precedent here, but what it could mean this year and or to be more precise, what could mean next year and the year after that is that OLED would be exclusive on the Mac to the M6 Pro and M6 Max MacBook Pro, not coming to the base M6 chip, right? Especially if you think the base M6 could be updated again in like October or so, but then maybe M6 Pro, M6 Mac come out early 2027, or even a little bit later than just October in the year, like late November or something like that. That would be a reason alone. But also, I expect actually M6 Pro, M6 Mac to be potentially more expensive, because thus far, basically every switch to an OLED display has come with a more expensive a price increase for Apple products. This has happened with the iPhone 10. This has happened with the base iPhone 12. This has happened with the OLED iPad Pro. So it has happened time and time again. The only product where it hasn't happened is on the Apple Watch, which has always been OLED, right? So that's a little bit of an exception, because it just never was LCD or something like that. So this is an exciting overall timeline. Obviously, I know some people might be a little bit disappointed that we aren't getting M5 Pro and M5 Max MacBook Pros this year, but at least it seems like Apple is going to upgrade the M5 series with an Ultra chip. For now, Mark Gurman only mentions the Mac Pro Studio here. No word on the Mac Pro, which still runs only on the M2 Ultra. I assume Apple just got tired of updating the motherboard for it or something like that. So that's a little bit crazy. And yes, if you're looking to a truly big change, you're looking into late 2026 or early 2027. At least if you're interested in MacBooks, if you're looking into something cheaper like the MacBook Air, that might take up until some point in 2028 or 2029 to adopt OLED, and that OLED most likely wouldn't be a tandem OLED panel. I assume by that point it would still be VRR, it would still be LTPO, similar to what we have on the base iPhone models these days, but it just wouldn't be that extreme performer that is on the MacBook Pros, which at that point also would have seen like 2 updates or so. So pretty cool things, all things considered. This is one of the Mark Gurman reports I have enjoyed more in recent times. I'm still not super happy with the way he writes about AI and shit like that. But hey, it is what it is. I am a little bit tired because, as I told you, I had work and everything today. So I will try to get a good night's sleep afterwards. You guys see, everyone is talking. When are we actually getting new hardware? If we are getting it. So seems like I haven't missed anything thus far, which is good. I will try to make a new stream the moment that new hardware launches. Given that it usually would come out at like 6 or 7 p.m. my time, that's when I should be home, no matter when this week. The only day I wouldn't be able to stream this week would be on Saturday, because I have longer plans that day. I would be able to stream on Friday, but potentially much later in the day, like 9 p.m., like basically at the time it is right now or so. But I'll let you know about my exact plans. And as always, go to the Discord. That's probably the best place. I'll react to it, maybe even while I was still meeting with friends and everything. So if something happens tomorrow, expect to stream as quickly as possible. If something happens on Friday or on Saturday, maybe expect a stream on Sunday. That's about what I can promise you, but my schedule is going to be much more regular going forward. That being said, guys, we've talked about a lot of different topics. I will try to give you timestamps. I'm not sure if I have time right now to leave them, but I will try maybe early tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you so much for the super chats, the membership milestone chats. Means a lot to me, but also just having you here, just interacting, giving your opinion, your agreements, your disagreements. Thank you so much. As always, let me know what else you would like to see me cover next. I'm leaving some big Mark action here for Riley before turning in, before tuning out, because that's just an inside gag that kind of has been working over the years, I guess, which now it's been years that I've been keeping up this channel. I think we have like over 250 streams on this channel, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, I'll hope to be back soon. Thank you so much. I'll see you then. This is Mark Tech tuning out.